My grandparents lived in an old manor house, which was originally a pig's farm. I remember once walking into a pen which my grandfather had forgot to keep a lock on. I would see the stains of blood on the wall, and the old smell of dead pigs still circulated the room. In my dreams, I would walk into the pen at night, seeing the pigs all pushed into the corner of the room, as they watched one by one their brothers and sisters being hung from the ceiling, a bucket placed beneath their heads, and a sharp knife cutting the veins in the neck, and seeing the blood pour onto the floor. Since then, I have never been able to walk into a butcher's without hearing that screaming, or seeing buckets full of blood. My grandparents converted the farm into a plant to keep horses. I would go out to the fences with apples and carrots to feed the horses and stroke their coats. Some nights I would sleep in the stables with them. When I was at home for the holidays, my grandmother never minded so long as I had a blanket. My grandfather, I think, thought of it as a cheap equivalent to employing a guard. I preferred staying with those innocent creatures, hearing the noises, rustles they made, and feeling the warmth of their bodies. Even the smell seemed to satisfy me. One horse called Nugget, a large ginger horse, who never tried to bite me like the others did, used to nudge up beside me in the stable. I think it must have thought I was its foal, because the poor thing lost its baby when it was giving birth. What was worse was the vet had to sedate the creature, so it was never even aware that its baby was never alive. What was Christ's death for? To pay for the sins of humanity, but you cannot erase the crime. What really does Jesus serve other than as a scapegoat? Someone who takes on all the crimes of humanity so his people can be forgiven. The goat disguised as a shepherd. Why should anyone, regardless of their authority, have the right to forgive the crimes inflicted on others? Should it not be right for the victim to decide if the perpetrator deserves forgiveness or not? I was caned constantly during my school years. I didn't wish to forget. I dropped my pencil once and was asked by the nun, a woman of 80-something, to come to the front of the room, and she told me, "This is going to hurt me a lot more than it's going to hurt you." And I moved my hand from hers just as she was about to hit my palm. "I guess you were right," I said. Since then, I would deliberately get myself into trouble, just to make her thrash her own hand as much as possible. I was never childish enough to just be a nuisance. I wanted really to drive her mad, and would constantly ask questions she couldn't answer, or pressure her with quotations and writers she never heard of. I loved to read, and I would often escape the grounds of the school for a couple of hours each week to a local second-hand bookshop, and swap one book for another, and then swap the previous book for another one. Every other lesson, after I had humiliated her in front of the class, and was asked to come to the front, she'd grip my hand tight, so as I couldn't slip my hand so easily again. Then she'd take a giant swing. Each time she had to cane me, she would increase the force, as if she hoped the next blow would smack some sense into me, and stop my behavior. But occasionally, but not always, I would move my hand and force her to hit her own. I got very bloodied palms in my school days, and I was forced to learn to write with both hands, otherwise I couldn't write my assignments or essays at all. I did not like the fact that she caned me. I had a few good friends in the boys' dorm. They would often pull pranks, and I felt obliged to try and get them out of them as best I could. My mate Billy Wormhill was probably the worst of the lot. I was once shouted at by Father Wilhelm whilst trying to help Billy. "Why are you climbing on the roof?" "Billy, sir." "Billy? What Billy?" "Billy's on the roof, sir. I'm climbing up to get him down." "Billy!
Billy! What are you doing on the roof? I'm being saved by Stinch. Why is he helping you climb down? Because I'm stuck on the roof, sir. Why are you stuck on the roof for? I can't get down, sir. Why can't you get down? Well, because I'm stuck, sir. Why did you get on the roof in the first place? I climbed up, sir. Why did you climb up for? I can't remember. The father was so furious with Billy, he paid no attention to me. If Father Wilhelm ever asked me why Billy was up on the roof, I couldn't give him any other reply than, God knows. And he would have most probably given me a thrashing for blasphemy.
I felt pretty terrible, and soon started to smoke and walk through the fields in my spare time. I'd steal a packet of cigarettes from one of the fathers. I'd smoke and walk along the paths with my thoughts, looking at the wheat fields in the sun. I came across a wasp nest in a stump in the middle of the field one day, and began flicking matches at it to see if I could actually light one in midair. By accident, I set the hive on fire. The wasps flew like bullets from the hive, leaving some to roast with the stump. I was mesmerized by the sight for a brief space of time before I ran as fast as I could from the fields. The flames spread, burning and destroying the crops. As I ran, I met the farmer and warned him of the flames. He asked what I saw. Still pumping with adrenaline, I told him I saw two boys run from the fields as the fire started. He paid me £5 and I continued to run. I didn't have time to process the fact that I lied to him and set fire to the fields. I just had to run, run, run. I felt I couldn't return to the school, and so after I had run clear away from the fields, I walked into the town. It was getting dark, and I felt very cold. I lost all my bearings. It wasn't until I noticed the delivery van, which provided the school's bread, parked on a street. I said to the driver that I got lost from a nature's walk, and would he tell me how to get to the school grounds again. He gave me a lift halfway through to the school. The school lit up like a lighthouse directing ships from the cliff. I gave him the £5 and made my way on foot back to their halls. It was still bitter cold, but I knew if I was spotted by any of the tutors, I would be done for. So I decided to make my way to the dorm rooms, pretend I was bedridden, and I was too sick to see the doctor. Lucifer, once God's favourite angel, shunned, vilified and cast into the pits of hell, turned into a figure who would for all eternity be used to represent all of humanity's depravity. Why did she blame me? Blame me for all her failings, as if I stood on her shoulder, whispering into her ear, telling her to act in ways she'd find repulsive, forcing her to do what she did not want to do. I have never made anyone do anything. Never. Never, never, never. At first I tried to avoid her, but each time she walked past me, she would never evade my heart. I then tried to despise her, convince myself of how much I hated her, but this was just dishonesty to myself. So I tried to destroy her. I would go to confession and tell my infatuation to the priest over and over again, thinking if I said it enough and made enough people hear how much she clouded my mind, the image of her would eventually grow old and wither in my head, and the words would turn to ash in my mouth. But it had quite the opposite effect. I would spend long afternoons contemplating on seeing her. Each time I spoke to the priest, the more and more I must have sounded possessed by Lilith. One night, I was asleep on my belly, and I felt the hot sting of metal searing the skin on my back. It frightened the life out of me, but before I passed out from the sheer pain of the hot iron, I screamed like the pigs from my dreams, which hung from the ceiling with the blood pouring from their necks. For a short period I wondered if it was not really a nightmare from my childhood, and I had become the pig or the beast of burden and torment. My lungs burst from my shrieks, but I couldn't move. I was so terrified. I awoke 3 days later in the infirmary with 2 large diamond marks on my shoulder blades, as if 2 wings had been ripped from my back. I was told an intruder entered my unknown reason or means into the school, whom no one had seen flee. In a mad frenzy attacked me in my sleep. No one claims to have witnessed the attack, but that was the official report given to the police. I haven't the faintest idea what really happened that night, and I was never told the full story of events. I'm not even sure if the priests and nuns believed it was an insane criminal. I heard rumors hissing in the halls of the school that the Holy Spirit visited me in the night and made sure I'd never enter into the gates of heaven. All my peers and the small children who once looked up to me avoided me like the plague.